At some point, started working with the Andy Warhols. Music is a language. No, Grandma, I don't want to be a baby doctor. Yeah, if this was a couch, I'd probably lay down. So I was just burning up the pavement, really, as soon as I could ride a bike. It's kind of weird. Creativity, in and of itself is wildly diverse. Didn't you have a French guy that lived up there for a while? I think people want to work someplace where they believe they're making a difference just in doing the work they do. I don't expect my great-grandkids to remember my name. I just hope they're better people.
1, 2, 3, 4.
He's no one, she's no one, we're no one.
Welcome to the Co-Pro Podcast, where we try to work with people that are in the creative and collaboration business. Today we've got a good buddy of mine, Ryan Wines. He's the CEO and founder of Marmoset Music, somebody that we collaborate with often here at Nemo Design. He's had the opportunity to be on the stages of South by Southwest. I think he's been on TED, and then recently I just saw you talk at EO Rise and had some good insights for everybody at that audience that got to see it. If you know the Dandy Warhols, early in his career he got to manage that group. I'm sure there's plenty of work to be done there. And then, wasn't afraid as an entrepreneur to get into business with his friends and with his brother. Marmoset's a B Corp, and he's a father of 2. Welcome to the podcast.
I'm glad you're done with the intro. Thank you. Thanks for having me, TG.
Love to have you. So I always got an opening question. So we're getting sponsorship from Icebreaker Starter Pack. And in there's a couple questions. And so pick a number between 1 and 3. There's 3 cards here.
Give me the triple.
You want the third one?
Yep.
You sure?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's see what it says. You can read it. So everybody at home, we just picked the card out of the box.
Oh, man, we're going deep. We're going deep child psychology here. If you could change one thing about the way you were raised, what would you change?
Now I'm picturing you in your hometown of Albany, Oregon as a young Ute.
Yeah, if this was a couch, I'd probably lay down and take my time with this question.
And then I'd have to take on a different role as your
right.
shrink. Okay.
That's right. We could change one thing. Probably just being a small, very blue-collar, kind of isolated town in Oregon. I would say I wish it had a little more arts and culture in it, a little more accessibility. The things that you get when you're in a city or adjacent to a city are so valuable, and I really value that for my kids, being able to grow up here. I'm sure they take it for granted and don't even realize what they've got. But just growing up as a kid, it was a desert. And so, we didn't even have really much of a skateboard culture. Music culture, we just didn't there were no bands in town. And Portland being the closest city really was an hour and a half away, and you kind of needed an adult or someone to take you up there. And so it's, arts and culture and some of those big city things that maybe we take for granted.
Well, maybe because you didn't have it, you appreciate it more, and that's why
That's right.
You've committed really a life trajectory on being in the music industry, starting from that milestone in Albany, Oregon.
100%. I went to school at Southern Oregon University in Ashland, and it gave me all the things it's weird because you wouldn't necessarily think that automatically, but it gave me a lot of the things that I really wanted but didn't have in Albany. Outdoor, you could be on a mountain, skiing or snowboarding within 12 minutes from campus. Endless waterfalls and rock climbing and all that fun stuff that I was thankful my friends got me into. And then also the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So we had, student rate tickets to go see world-class theater, and those sort of things, just having them right there that you could walk to every day were really out of this world. So then from there to Portland to kind of soak up everything we've got here.
But isn't that when you were at college? So again, there's definitely schools of, college tuition is so expensive now. And would you consult with somebody on the outside or even for your own children to go to college? Is it an important part? Because that's where you were a DJ, right? And that's kind of where you learned the music business?
Yeah, it is. And that was another big thing was, the opportunity to go away to college. And, they it's kind of the world is your oyster on most college campuses. You can kind of do whatever you want to do. Maybe some kids don't figure that out soon enough, but the access is there. And so there's a college radio station. And so, of course, you just dive in. And believe it or not, they'll let you play whatever you want to play. And I kind of wish there were limitations because I probably wouldn't have played so much Sublime. But,
We forgive you.
I try to live without regrets.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
And then again, it's like there's, with music in mind, it's like, tell me more about this album. And there's a
Dude.
picture of what's this album? Tell me about it. What are we looking at?
I have never seen anybody grab that record before. I've tried to find it on vinyl. It's nearly impossible and would probably cost thousands and thousands of dollars.
What is the album? You got to describe for the
Yeah, I
folks.
can't even tell you very much about Jack Wilkins.
Jack Wilkins.
It's kind of a cool album artwork for a white guy with pork chop sideburns playing an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
So that record was, how it got to me is it was sampled by a Tribe Called Quest on the, I'm trying to remember, I think it's Can I Kick It?
And the song is?
What's that?
Which song?
I think it's on Can I Kick It?
Yeah.
Which I'd say in the last year or two has had this real big re-entry into pop culture. I've seen it on MLS ads, and I've seen it in there's a big brand campaign right now. I can't think of which brand. It might be like Samsung cell phones or something, where they're using it as well. But one of my favorite bands of all time, number one or number two, right there with De La Soul, and so they sampled that record in a way that was just, I don't know, it's just timeless and classic. And that aside, there's a drum solo on that song that Tribe used, but on that record, so they don't use the drum solo. But if you dig into that Jack Wilkins record and listen to that drum solo on that track, it's pretty mind blowing. Every time I hear it, I just kind of have to stop whatever I'm doing and listen to it. And it's the tone and it's the performance that is really, really wild. So I highly recommend that.
All right, we'll check it out. You get an opportunity. And with that, again, there's like
Nice pull, TG. I'm impressed.
well, little bits of trying to figure you out a little bit. It's like sometimes I think I know him, then I get surprised every time we go out and I learn something new.
It's not as hard as you think.
You're not?
No.
That's all right. We'll keep it that way. Then there's those people too when you're coming up the ranks, like that are mentors, and they really kind of help set that trajectory. So again, what I hear again in Albany, Oregon, there's a guy that's craving the arts. You go to college,
Yeah.
you learn about DJing, maybe picked up an instrument, maybe you played the banjo, maybe you played the drums. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what the music guy at Marmoset plays, but he's got some music in his DNA.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sure that there was somebody there that kind of helped you along. And then there's another mentor, too, that I was really kind of curious about as well.
Okay. I
Can
see
you
what
describe
you're
this
doing.
picture?
Yeah, that's my grandma.
Grandma.
That's my grandma. Her name is Lavira
Beautiful.
Wines. She's from South Georgia, small town down there named, I believe she's from Moultrie, Georgia. Make a long story short, my mom and dad kind of had their challenges and their limitations, but I had both sets of grandparents within a couple miles of my home, and so I was just burning up the pavement really as soon as I could ride a bike to get to each of their homes. Would spend weekends with them, and they were really, really important to me. And so what my grandma, that's my grandma Wines, what she did for me is she just had unwavering faith and belief in me. She was one of those types of people that would just kind of open up my world and tell me that anything was possible. I could be anything I wanted to be. You can be an astronaut. You can be the president of the United States. Like, what do you want to be? And she would just pump me up and gas me up all the time. And I wasn't getting that from mom and dad. And so, and I've been told by perhaps my therapist that you only need one of those champions in your life in order for it to be impactful. And I had four with all four of my grandparents. But she was definitely really special. Now, I don't know why, but she really was rooting for me to be a baby doctor. She was always like, don't you want to be a baby doctor when you grow up? And I was just like, that's weird. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird. I mean, maybe you pull a good paycheck, but no, Grandma, I don't want to be a baby doctor. So
Can't blame her for trying.
yeah. In fact, my my ink on my left arm is of a magnolia tree. Because she, being from Georgia, lots of magnolia trees, she planted them in her backyard in Albany, Oregon, and I just remember playing out there all the time, and because she's so important to me. So the irony is, however, if she were alive today, she would have been 100 years old back on September 11th, her birthday. But if she were alive today, she would be horrified, absolutely horrified by the thought of a tattoo. So, you know.
Good thing, bad thing.
Who's
It's
to say?
commemorative.
That's right.
And times have changed, haven't they? So now you've got this deal at the down at the college.
Okay.
Where'd you go from there?
Oh, well, so interesting story. I was kind of stuck in Albany before I went to Ashland, and I was just kind of up to no good. I was making bad choices.
No, really?
I was doing bad things, and was really at this point in life where my path literally could have gone two different ways. And weird luck, but there was this really kind of cheesy, divey nightclub, if you will, that one night met a girl there, and we were both very intoxicated. I remember at some point after we left the club, I don't know why I remember this, but she kept covering one eye so she could, because she was seeing like 5 of me. And of course, it was love at first sight. So
Love at first sight, first sight.
Yeah, I don't know. But I ended up, long story short is, it was the opportunity that got me to Ashland, because she was going to school there. I was just home visiting that weekend.
Wow.
And so over time, I chased her down there. Didn't chase her, but joined her down there and got the heck out of Albany, and my life changed. So being in that environment there was really crucial. I made a whole new friend group, people that came from, for lack of better words, more skilled words, to say better families. And they just seemed a little bit more developed in some ways that I wasn't. And so just incubating with people, you know, being around people, that old rule or concept of you kind of become some combination of like the 5 people you spend the most time with. That kind of happened in Ashland. It was the most pivotal time in my life. Me and the girl eventually broke up. But that really mattered to me. And so from that point, I ended up just thinking, like, where am I going to go? You're about halfway between San Francisco and Portland when you're in Ashland, maybe a little closer to Portland. But I didn't really know what I was going to do. So, but it was basically, for me, it was actually, most of my friends were pre-law. I was a poli-sci minor, and most of them were poli-sci minor or majors, and we were all in student government together and doing all kinds of stuff. But most of them were pre-law, and they went on to law school. And I realized as our senior year, I was like, oh shit, I didn't have the grades and was not on the law school path. And I would have probably done terrible. I'm not a great academic. I'm like a very average academic. And so end of the day, they all went to law school, and I was just like, oh, what am I going to do? So I decided to get to the city and figure it out, just find my way. And so, you know, made it to Portland, messed around with a bunch of different jobs, trying to find my way, and eventually started managing bands. And that was kind of returning to the seeds that were planted as when I was DJing, kind of putting that kind of business poli-sci degree in with the kind of music love, and started managing bands. And, you know, from there, at some point, started working with the Andy Warhols, which was a pretty big jump. Very thankful to Courtney and everyone on that team at the time for giving me an opportunity. They literally reached out to me on Twitter. I didn't know anybody there. And they reached out to me on Twitter, and I barely use Twitter. Don't use it anymore. Kind of hate it. But and they just said, hey, can we meet for coffee? And so met up, and I was working at an ad agency at the time. And from that point forward, just kind of started finding my way. I realized the Dandy Warhols were really important to me because they had a legit business operation behind the band, where they were, you know, touring globally, really big in Europe, really big in Australia, and, you know, we're making, you know, millions of dollars doing it. And I also noticed that they had really big sync placements in licensing. I believe it was like Vodafone or some name, I forget what the name is, but over in Europe where they had I think they had like $1 million sync placement for, it may have been Bohemian Like You, but it may have been We Used to Be Friends. So it was one of their big songs. And simultaneously I was managing bands and working at an ad agency. And it just kind of crystallized for me that you can, for independent artists, much smaller than the Andy Warhols, you can spin out and spend all this time playing shows and putting out records or CDs back then, and make $200 playing at the Doug Fir, or sell 20 records or CDs and make another $100. And you split that up by the 5 people in the band, and then give your manager 15%, and it's nothing. But you get a sync placement, even if it's a $5,000 sync placement or a $10,000 sync placement. Every once in a while, there's $50K, $100K, but even on the small ones, it's so much more than you make by touring and playing shows and selling records. Not that you stop doing those things, but from an economic standpoint, it's a game changer for a band, empowering them to make more art. And so that's how things kind of came together. And from that point forward, I just started experimenting, just trial and error. Like, how does this work? Because I had never done it before. Most music companies, publishers, most of them are in LA or maybe New York or somewhere like that. And I'm always convinced we're doing it wrong, but that's okay. I think you can learn a lot by failing.
Well, it sounds like what we're doing now is a starting of entrepreneurship. And again,
That's right.
You're working 2 jobs. You got your day job, and then you got this other job with the band. And then it seems like now this thing you actually love is actually starting to pay off, and you can get rid of, working for those agencies. Oh man, that must have been torture for you. I feel bad. That's just crappy working at agencies.
I mean, torture and happiness, it's a fine line sometimes.
Yeah.
And, happiness isn't happiness, without a violin playing goat. So.
Gotta have it. And so now we got the licensing thing going, and then it seems like we're kind of walking into the Marmoset story.
Yeah.
Who was the first artisan that you brought onto the new project?
Well, I mean, I had some bands I was managing. There's a band named Derby, a band named The Dimes, a band named Ravishers, a band named Oh Darling. A lot of, I'd say, regional bands that would kind of burn up and down the West Coast. But beyond that, I met a fella named Brian Hall, who was an artist with a band at the time called, this is before his band Sunbeam, which was my favorite band of his. They had a band called, I think, the June Umbrella, and I had booked some shows with his band a couple times, and he had been making music for advertising for a couple of years, and he was young. I don't know, he was probably like early 20s, and he had already hit a couple home runs, and his life was changing pretty quickly in doing that. And so we talked, and I think we had coffee probably like 50 times over the course of 6 months, and just kept shooting the shit and talking, and eventually we ended up starting Marmoset together. So Brian Hall was my co-founder. We still work and collaborate. He's no longer a partner in Marmoset, but he still has music on our roster. We still hang out, usually around a campfire, usually with some whiskey. And he has a band now called Tense that he puts a lot of his energy into. And I think having him, he was initially the traditional creative force of the business. I was building the roster, signing artists, building the business out, figuring out, how we find clients, how we find work. But you know what? Brian very quickly started showing me the ropes on music production, and how to produce music. And, so I guess over time, we've been doing this now for about 14 years. I have learned a few things.
Congrats.
I have produced a few songs, produced a few records, and you always have this imposter syndrome going on, and anytime you're doing things like this, but it's been a blast. It's a real privilege to be able to produce a record.
And you also came into running the business and having ethics behind the culture that you've built.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that? Again, you're B Corp,
Sure.
and there's other.
Yeah, so I'd say maybe we were just fucking around for the first 6 years. Like, we really didn't know what we were doing or what we had, but it kept growing. And so we just kind of kept hiring a few people here and there and building it, but we didn't know what we were doing. And I think by about year 6, we're doing millions of dollars in revenue and things are going great. And people are saying, oh, you've got a rocket ship, and stuff like that. And I don't know. All of it seems weird. And you're winning like fastest growing company awards. And we didn't know what we were doing. By about year 6, we kind of had this kind of moment, Brian and I did, where we said, well, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And what is becoming of this thing? Because when we first envisioned it, we thought we'd be like, a couple guys with a couple friends working out of our basements and garages, doing something very, very modest. I had a partner at the time who was a lawyer, and so I was kind of thinking I'd be the stay-at-home dad while she had the grown-up job. And it just kind of got bigger than us, or bigger than we imagined. And so we had to kind of have this moment of like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? What's our purpose? What are our values? What do we care about? And so for us, we looked around and we saw it as a very homogenous workplace. Like, we had hired our friends. We had, just been very casual and nonchalant about it. And we ended up having a bunch of people that kind of looked and thought and talked like us or like me, And we're all going to shows together. We're all going to Pickathon together, all sharing records together. And I think that's what friends do. I'm not trying to paint that as like, oh, we were so bad. But it was very homogenous, And I think in order to thrive beyond just being a small startup company into something bigger, we had to think bigger. And we needed to be a reflection of the clients we were looking to work with, the kind of work we were hoping to attract, the kind of brands we were hoping to attract. And we just want to make a better impact on the community and on the world. And so, we decided we wanted to, switch things up and really prioritize equity and hiring people that were different than us, with different backgrounds, different ideas of what's cool, different music preferences, people that grew up in different places. And, I don't want this to sound gross, like it was just very explicitly like this is a DE&I endeavor, because maybe the result would check the box of a DE&I, strategy. But the reality was we knew we needed different ideas and different backgrounds and different people to be a better company. And I think that's key to creative. Creativity is not homogenous. Creativity, in and of itself is wildly diverse. And so we really had to kind of switch it up and make sure that we were being the best creative partner we could be, for the kind of business we wanted to run. And so things started changing pretty quickly. We became a B Corp. We made a commitment to give 10% of profits back to community orgs that we believe in. A lot of social justice, nonprofits, a lot of things like Rock and Roll Camp for Girls. We established the first Black Scholarship Fund at my alma mater, Southern Oregon University. Stuff for houselessness. When there's different things going on, hard things going on around the world, we try to jump in and help support those. So that was really important, that 10% of profits to invest in community things that we care about. And it's important not just as a community partner, but also for our staff. I think people want to work someplace where they believe they're making a difference just in doing the work they do. And so we've been able to do that pretty well. But one of the things I'm most proud of is probably the more recent thing we've done, and that's just publishing an annual transparency report. And so we're on year 3. My team's it's October. We're working on our 4th annual transparency report, where we kind of pull back the curtains and give a behind-the-scenes view of what's really going on in Marmoset. And it's kind of weird and a little bit awkward, but I think that's part of the point, is to just put it all out there and let it be a point of discussion. We're not trying to say that we're the best or we're better than anybody else. Like, it's quite clear that there's some things that we're lacking in and are behind on, in terms of diversity, or in terms of pay, or in terms of benefits, or in terms of retention, or turnover of staff, or in terms of where our dollars go, or what the royalty splits are with artists. Like, we could try to put it all out there and just say, this is us. And the hope is that more people will do that in the industry, so that we can kind of all work collaboratively together to get better as an industry and as a community. So I think that's the thing that my team is most excited about. And I'm always most excited when my team's excited.
That's so brave of you. And also you bring up, awkward was a word that you use. But again, in leadership, there's always some vulnerability.
Yep.
And again, I think some of the better lessons or harder lessons maybe in running a business as an entrepreneur are seen in those vulnerable moments.
Well, first I just want to say, like, for me, it's been hard. It's been equally exciting and fun and huge learning opportunity every day I show up, and will be until the day I stop doing it, and also incredibly hard. And I think the things I'm learning that have helped have just getting really clear about who we are, what we stand for, and what works for us. Every organization is going to be different. It's almost like, every human is different. We're all these like unique little snowflakes. There's no two that are the same. Even twins are not the same people, right? And so getting really clear about who we are as an organization, what matters to us, and not just me, but my team. It's bigger than me. And then making sure that we are kind of almost like a strong magnet. So you turn on the magnet and you get really specific about it. So we have a drafting off of Netflix, for better or worse, we have a culture deck, and it's somewhere close to 100 pages. It's a deep dive. And so whenever we have somebody apply for a job and they're a finalist as a candidate, we send it to them before they start the interview process, to basically say, like, this is who we are, this is what we care about, we're quirky as fuck. Some of these things you might not like. Some of these things might piss you off. So you have to figure out right now, before your interviews, if you're in or not. And getting really clear about that, knowing that you might bruise somebody or like, their ego or their beliefs, it's hard to do. And so we have that culture deck to really say, this is what we're about, this is what we care about. We're not trying to be right or wrong or good or bad. This is just what matters here. And some of those things, just to rattle off a couple, you could ask me about later. We have a no assholes rule. Like
in black and white, no assholes.
It's actually a little more complex than that. It's no brilliant assholes, because I think a lot of assholes are allowed to stay on teams and in companies because they're so good at their job. They are brilliant. They are an expert. They know everything, and so they kind of have some leeway to be an asshole. And I've yet to work at a workplace that doesn't have one of those around. And everybody just kind of tiptoes around that person because they know all the things, or they're the best at the certain thing. And we don't care. We're very clear. No brilliant assholes. I don't care how talented you are, how good you are. And we've had to let a couple people go over the years because, and they might have been like the best music producer at what we do, music for advertising, music for TV and film. They might have been the best music producer in town. And perhaps we let them go because of that rule. Another one is, let's see, we have this thing called the Wizard of Oz paradox that's in there. And that one is basically like, on the outside, you see a music company like Marmoset, and it looks beautiful, it looks creative, it looks fun, it looks like this would change your life if you could just work at Marmoset. Same could be said for Nemo, right? People get these really big ideas about these companies. They look at the website, they maybe come to a party you're hosting, they maybe get drunk. If I'm talking about the Nemo Halloween party, they might stick their hand through a weird hole.
Or make a baby.
Yeah. They might go up to the weird secret balcony couch and make out.
Maybe.
I don't know. You guys know about that, right?
Take the fifth.
Didn't you have a French guy that lived up there for a while?
Yeah, there's a rumor.
So where was I going? The
Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz paradox. So people get these big ideas, and in the Wizard of Oz, they go to the Emerald City, and it's big and shiny and all exciting, but then they get back to the wizard, and they look behind the curtain, and it's just an old crotchety man, like, pulling levers and turning knobs. You and I are the old... No, you and I are not the old crotchety man, I hope, not yet. The thing is like when you look behind the scenes at any creative organization, including Marmoset and Nemo, what are you going to see?
Collaborating people.
Okay, but that sounds exciting. What are you going to see that's not exciting?
The refrigerator?
So this is how I put it. You look behind the curtain of Marmoset, and yeah, there is some creative work, but that's one team, and that's part of the work they do. But we have a finance team. What do you think they're doing? They're crunching numbers. They're pulling reports. They're paying bills. They're chasing people that are late on their payments. They're mailing checks out to artists. Does that sound exciting?
It is for them. They like it.
Perhaps. We have a marketing team. They're constantly looking at SEO analysis and spreadsheets and pulling reports, and they're trying to optimize the site, and they are putting endless content on social and producing that. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, when you look behind the scenes, it's work. Like, it's a shit ton of emails. It's a shit ton of Google Docs and spreadsheets and meetings ad nauseum. And you have this idea that it's going to be this beautiful creative experience. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of creative in there. But that work is largely reserved for the more tenured people, If you're coming in the door and you're pretty new to this thing, like, you're not going to get to touch most of that work. You're going to start somewhere, and most of the work you're going to do is not going to be that exciting. And that is what you should expect when you walk in the door.
It's a job.
I mean, I think there's a Henry Ford quote that says most people miss opportunity because it's dressed in overalls and it looks like work. And that's what I'm talking about.
That's great. In there's still a collaboration piece. And again, it's a big part of what this podcast is about. It's a big part of what one of our core values is always to be, it's called collective progression. And again, I'm sure within your organization, there's plenty of good strategies and opportunities to collaborate. How do you guys do it?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think what the best angle is to this. But for us at Marmoset, I really believe that the thing that precedes collaboration is having the right people and making sure that we've got really strong communication and we're all kind of speaking a common language, and we're all bringing very unique ideas to the table. And whether that's an artist that we're working with or a band to make a new song for the catalog or for our clients, or whether we're trying to come up with a new idea for a record we might want to collaborate with an artist to put out. It really starts with having the right people on the team first. But beyond that, I just like to think of, for us, music. In one way, I like to look at it is music is language. Oftentimes, what I want to communicate to you or you to me, we get limited by the words. Usually, for you and me, we're talking English language. But once in a while, you might say something to me with your eyes, Trevor. Or maybe a light touch. I salmoned you earlier. That was communication. That was language.
Something.
But I really believe music is perhaps one of the greatest languages we have, because it can say so much more than we can at times say with words and letters. And when you have music, it can also be very what's the right word? Versatile. Or adaptive. Like, when you hear a piece of music or a song, it's going to sound very different maybe to me. It might impact me emotionally or otherwise very different than it impacts you. It's I think our context, our lived experience is going to probably inform what that music is like. But it can be one thing to me, and I can use that to communicate with you, and it can often bridge a really serious gap. And so in collaborating, what's cool about music is we all bring our different kind of lived experiences and context of our lives together to create language. And in the work that we do, for better or worse, we're often creating music for use with TV and film, movie trailers at times, and of course advertising and brands. And that's why they call. That's why when Nemo wants music, or anyone wants music, they're calling Marmoset, because we have a language that can span gaps where words and speech and other things lack. And there's so much that can be said by it. And so I think in the collaboration sense, that's our most common angle for collaboration, is figuring out what is the best language in music to say the thing we're trying to say, or the thing that maybe you or your clients are trying to say.
And then you also too like lived experiences. There's a lot there to unpack. And where I want to kind of take that to again is just into brands, and maybe go into like one thing I always like to ask our guests is like, what brands are you following right now and why? And you can't talk about Nike, you can't talk about Patagonia, you can't talk about Apple.
Yeah. I'll go back to the Super Bowl last year. Humble brag, we had music in 7 different Super Bowl spots. A couple were regional spots to, be honest and state the facts here, but one was a really big MGM, I believe. Hope I'm not getting that wrong. Tom Brady spot with Vince Vaughn, and that was fun. And the music we used was from an artist project on our roster called Dr. Crosby, and it's somebody I really appreciate. The artist behind that. His name is Josiah Sherman, aka Buddy Ross, and he is a co-writer, frequent collaborator, and the live keyboard player for Frank Ocean. And it's just fun just knowing the guy from before he moved to LA when he was here and his girlfriend worked at Robo Taco, and he was just a dude out here that liked to go fishing, in the evenings and weekends. And anyways, it was cool to see that song land for him in that spot. And it's cool to see him get a good paycheck on that.
Good.
Because I don't know if Frank pays all of his bills. Did I just say that out loud?
It's another story.
And I really wish Frank Ocean would put out another record. I just don't know if he can get his shit together, man. I mean, that's not what we're here to talk about. So, where were we?
Brands.
There was there was one spot in there. I believe it was University of Kentucky healthcare system. I'm probably screwing that up. I apologize to the good people if I did. But we did a cover of a Marvin Gaye song, and it was a really, and it was for, I believe it was showing the experience of a man and the experience with his family going through. I believe it was a health scare, but I believe it was specifically a cancer scare. And the spot kind of led through that story and used this. We did a cover of this Marvin Gaye, and I believe Marvin Gaye and Tammy Wynette both are on the original. And it's that song "You're All I Need to Get By." I think Method Man used it in a song too. Anyways, and it just did the thing. When we're talking about language, about music being a language that can bridge the gap when words miss, it did that. And it did it for a brand in this, University of Kentucky healthcare system that's really out there trying to do some good work. And it was aired during the Super Bowl for the triple win. So it was really, really cool to see that work and see that work that way. Anytime we can be part of something that contributes to the greater good, we're all in on that. You won't let me talk about Patagonia, but from a pure business standpoint, I don't think there is a higher aim for us at Marmoset. We are constantly drafting off of Patagonia. We've adopted some of their policies, such as we will pay a bond and bail people out of jail if they get arrested for protesting for something good.
Cool.
That was a cool thing that they did. If we have for women's access to healthcare rights, if we have staff that need an abortion and it's illegal in their state, because we have staff all over the place, we will support them in crossing state lines and paying whatever needs to be paid and doing whatever needs to be done to make that happen for them. And those are things like I didn't come up with these ideas on my own. Like just drafting off of Patagonia and seeing the great work they're doing and seeing like, yeah, we see ourselves in that too, and we want to do that too. And even I'll go so far as to say it's not even necessarily me adopting that Patagonia. My team is brilliant, and when they see those things, they bring them to me and are like, Wines, let's do that. So I want to give credit where credit's due. I've got a couple great co-leaders on my team in Louisa and Louisa Jeffrey and Nicole Hooper, who are really good at helping our company be a good company.
Congrats. Sounds like you don't have your turnover is very little because you're doing the right things that people resonate with and having purpose when they do come to work. And so,
I mean, fingers crossed. I think, you and I track these things in
Yeah.
this weird corner of our brain, but I don't think anybody's departed in the last maybe 18 months or something.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
And I won't tell you how many departed the year before that, but when we have these weird little ticks in our brain, are like, okay, something's working right now, so let's keep doing it.
Let's go.
The other thing I love about Patagonia, they are a really good client of ours. So we get to do a lot of work with them, and they're a client that we were able to have them actually on two different sides of our business. So we've got our traditional Marmoset side, where we will kind of offer a kind of a higher service experience, where we will help clients find the right song for the project they're working on. So if Patagonia's doing a brand campaign on a new product or maybe a new initiative that they're doing, we will work closely with their creatives to help them find the right song. And that might be several rounds of search for them internally that our team's doing on our creative services team. It might be offering to do something custom for them. And we really enjoy doing that work. However, we also have our new SaaS product called Track Club, where it's built more for the content creator marketplace. So for YouTubers, podcasters, TikTokers, anybody that's putting out high volume, kind of high rate content, and they don't have time to send emails back and forth and have creative conversations and do searches and get an invoice for every single project. They just want to log in, grab music, run and gun, get their stuff done, get out, go home. So for that high volume content creation, Patagonia also is a proud user of Track Club. And so a lot of their social media and things they're putting out, we're their music provider. And so I'm just always that's a humble brag to be able to work with one of your, or actually my favorite brand of all time, because it's about as good as it gets.
Well, thanks for pushing back.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
Great answer.
I know you told me I couldn't talk about Patagonia.
Most people fall back to that, but I think you had a different point of view and inspiring, the core values within your company, as opposed to it usually comes back to the greenwashing when people kind of talk about Patagonia. So awesome. But then again, with Track Club, I know you worked really hard with making that product work. So again, those that haven't used it, you're able to take the tracks and be able to take the vocals out, turn up the drums, and then.
Oh, you've used it.
Of course. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't I? It's amazing. And then, when I look at it too, again, is there AI involved, and is there AI in the future of music, and is there some insights there that your bigger vision might be able to share with us?
Well, of course, AI is part of the future of music, and anybody who doesn't think so is got their head buried somewhere dark. And so I think the important part of this conversation is to just acknowledge the fair amount of concern that folks feel, mainly artists or people that have a lot of respect for the arts, that people feel when they think about AI, especially generative AI in music. Plenty of room for legit concerns. However, I know that you and I are both familiar with some of Byron Katie's work. There's this thing called the turnaround, where you kind of state the worst case scenario. Oh my God, generative AI is going to replace all music. All the artists will be out of jobs, and the world's going to end. And the turnaround is then saying, well, that's the worst case scenario. What's the best case scenario? And then spending some time there. Actually, if you can spend maybe equal amount of time thinking and sitting with the best case scenario versus the worst case scenario, that might be a healthy activity, right? So, best case scenario. AI is a tool. Like all technologies that have preceded it have been. Now, I'm not saying it's the same as all technology. Sure, it's different, but why not? Why can't it be a tool? Why can't it be a tool to help artists do their work a little faster, a little easier, a little better? Maybe it helps, improve mix quality or the process faster. Maybe, I can't even think of all the ways. Maybe it helps if you're going to edit and arrange a song. Maybe it helps with that. Maybe it gives you insights into how you can get better tones on an instrument. I don't know. But let's just say maybe it becomes a really amazing tool. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there to really get excited on how that could work. Now, if I'll just throw out some wild ideas. What if I'm an editor on the picture side, on the video side, and I've got some songs I want to use, but they're just not hitting the edit or the pacing quite right. Oftentimes editors are always trying to find the song, and so oftentimes they'll actually start with the song and edit to the song. Otherwise, to try to reverse engineer is hard.
Yep.
But what if you didn't have to always edit to the song first? You could actually start with the video, with the picture, with the most important shots and sequences, and then have AI help you fit the song in. I think there's going to be some things like that will be helpful on all sides. And so I'm just trying to spend a lot of time staying in the light. I think most things in life have a dark side and also have a light side. And I think it's up to us as humans to figure out where we're going to spend our time. I'm not saying it's bad to spend time in the dark, but I just try to spend more time in the light. And so I really believe AI, even generative AI, is going to have some upsides and some downsides. And it's going to be up to us to discern and decide, how we want to use that.
What are you optimizing for?
What am I optimizing for?
And what I'm kind of thinking too is, again, there's conversations that you've had on legacy.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear your insights on what your contribution
How many of your great-grandparents can you name?
to.
What are their names?
There's Francis and Adeline.
Oh, those are cool names.
Yeah, old school.
Yeah. When you do the math and think about years and time, your great-grandparents were probably alive, most likely, in the last 100 years. 100 years was not very long ago.
No.
And without them, you wouldn't exist. They're pretty important. And yet we don't know their names. Not only do we not know their names, we don't even know their stories usually. We don't know their life. We don't know what they were about or what their highlights, maybe low points were. We don't know anything. And I think that's odd. And you can transfer this over to the business world. Say a name like you told me brands I can't name, but you say a name like Nike. You know who the founder of Nike is.
Mr. Knight, yep.
Yeah. Well,
Uncle Phil.
And you walked right into my trap. He had a co-founder,
Bill Bowerman.
Bill Bowerman, who's often forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
He was alive just up until a few years ago, already forgotten. And without him, the waffle iron pattern on the bottom of those rubber shoes that made the difference at the U of O track.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I fucking hate the Ducks.
It's okay.
Sorry, I have to say that. You have the opportunity to. You gave me the mic. I'm gonna say my truth. Go Beavs.
We'll edit that out, right? We can edit.
God,
okay.
I hate the Ducks. Nike's fine. God, I hate the Ducks. I grew up in Albany. I've been going to Beaver games since I was in diapers. So, but all of that to say, like, I'm not. As we don't remember our great grandparents, including their stories, as we don't remember Bill Bowerman. I think the big takeaway, without making this story too long, you've heard the long version, is I don't know that legacy matters all that much. Because when you're dead, you're dead. Like, maybe you can leave some large endowment that goes on to like make a big difference in the world. Cool, that'd be a cool legacy. Most people can't do that. But just think about all the rich, famous, dead people. I mean, we have all these high-rise buildings, these beautiful bridges in Portland. Can you name the people that designed them or paid for them to be made?
No.
No, of course not, because it doesn't fucking matter. Like, they're dead. And I'm not trying to be dark, but I just really don't. There's a lot of people that talk about legacy. You and I and entrepreneur groups and business leader groups. Everybody wants to talk about the legacy they want to leave behind. And I hate to kind of sound like an a-hole, but I just think that's ego. I think people want their legacy to matter because they want to stroke their ego a little bit. And I'm not above that. I don't know anybody that is above that. Like, I've got ego, but I'm really trying hard to keep it in its place. And so I think what matters is what we're doing right now. What we do right here while we're here. That's why we're a B Corp. That's why we give 10% of profits back to community orgs. That's why I get excited to work with Patagonia. That's why I really enjoy hanging out with you, TG, and getting quality time with you. Like we were just out on a farm a couple days ago, going for hikes and, talking about our lives is, what we're doing right now in the moment with the people we care about and love and in our communities. And maybe as we talked about missiles flying across different countries, like how we might have some thoughts or actions on how to make those things better. Right now matters. I don't know that legacy is going to matter. I don't expect my great-grandkids to remember my name. I don't care if they do. I just hope they're better people.
So you've taken us to the dark and to the light.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you want to add?
Well, have I mentioned that happiness isn't happiness
Tell me more.
unless there's a violin playing goat?
I'm learning every day.
That's fantastic. No, I don't really have a whole lot more to add, but I want to challenge you.
Here it comes.
Have you thought about being a B Corp?
I have.
What are you doing?
We've done the practices and actually set up and operate even with our composting and taken the practices, just haven't paid the check to get certified.
Cool.
So yeah, it wouldn't be that hard. We just have to go through the process.
Cool.
Thank you.
Join the club.
Yeah.
It's a fun one to be in.
Yeah.
We have a lot of friends that are B Corps, you and I.
We do. We know some smart people over there.
Yeah.
Where can we find you?
Oh, man, I don't want to be found.
Fair enough.
I really don't want to be found. I'm just trying to stay in my lane and, go fishing, stand in a river,
Right.
hug my kids, hang with a few friends, keep my head down. I don't want to be found, Trevor.
I appreciate that. Then where is
I'm kidding. Marmosetmusic.com, trackclub.com. What else? We're on the socials, Marmoset and Track Club. We have a little record label, too, we don't talk much about.
Oh, fun.
It's called Infinite Companion. And the point of the record label is kind of acknowledging that there's a lot of underrepresented folks in the world that tend to not get their music put out as frequently as, 4 handsome, straight dudes playing guitars.
Boy band.
They get a lot of music put out. Nothing against them. They're cool, too. But we're just kind of stocked up on that music. And so with our cute little record label, Infinite Companion, we're just trying to prioritize some underrepresented folks and try to amplify that music and put it out. So you can check that out, too. I think you can Google it, Infinite Companion Recordings.
And you did mention whiskey. And
Uh-oh, here we go.
I wanted to say thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Dude.
But we also wanted to make sure you got a little parting gift. And
This is not just any whiskey, TG.
Tell me, what are we looking at here?
You clearly did your work. Because a lot of people can walk into a whiskey shop and just think, I'm looking for a Japanese whiskey. And half of the ones on the shelf say Japanese whiskey, but they're fakes. It's a Japanese company just throwing booze into a bottle. But you got the Yamazaki, the 12-year, which is the OG best thing you can get. I've been to this distillery outside of Kyoto in Japan, and all I can say is this has a very special place in my heart. You know how to do it, so thank you. Means a lot.
Thank you. And that's it for today's episode of the podcast.